The economic ills we suffer have come upon us over several decades. They will not go away in days, weeks, or months, but they will go away. They will go away because we, as Americans, have the capacity now, as we've had in the past, to do whatever needs to be done to preserve this last and greatest bastion of freedom. In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people. Well, if no one among us is capable of governing himself, then who among us has the capacity to govern someone else?
Welcome to the Robb Show, the future #1 podcast in America. That was Ronald Reagan, 1981 inauguration speech. New day, same story. Wanted to get back to everyone. It's been a couple of weeks. We have a job, so I've been traveling for business over the course of the last couple of weeks. A lot of news have taken place since then, so I want to get to it. I think we've got a lot of information to get to, so we'll see how efficiently and how quickly and how steadily we can tell the story. Trump has relinquished power out of D.C., and it's crazy when you go around the country to see how each state is handling COVID-19, the movie. And I wanted to open up with Ronald Reagan because he talks about several things in that little clip. Government isn't the answer to your problems. It is the problem. I believe that to be true. And I think when people get married to the government, they get married to a big problem. He goes on in that speech to talk about freedom and freedom being under attack routinely in this country. Because remember, in 1776, the people of America broke away from a global power structure. The people did. There was no government at the time. We were breaking away from England, and the American people broke away. And we are the ones that have kept freedom alive for the last 200 plus years. But what's going on today is that COVID-19 is the instrument being used to take away your freedoms. And I just want people to pay attention. This is going to get, stick with me. It's an interesting story to be told. Not many people tell it. Remember, the media is not there to tell you the news. They're there to shade the news and keep you from information that is important. And the same people that are against the United States are controlling that message every day across multiple platforms. The misinformation campaign has everyone fighting. Masks seem to be a big topic. I know that I am a very hated person by many people right now because I am so outspoken against masks, but I want to explain why. It certainly has nothing to do with selfishness. If anything else, it's selflessness. If I was going to be selfish, I'd wear the stupid mask and walk in lockstep with everyone else who is thinking that these masks are saving them from a virus. They're positive of it. They will not hear any information to the contrary, no matter who says it, no matter how many journals, health journals, CDC, WHO, everybody that we look to give us information, the Surgeon General, everybody has said masks do not work. Yet here we are in a debate over masks. So I want to give you the other side of the story, the anti-mask perspective and why it is, and the information behind it that gives you some context as to why masks may be a very dangerous control step being used by people against America. So let me try to explain the big picture. Trump has basically taken the control out of D.C. and put the handling of COVID upon the states, primarily to get away from a centralized government and a centralized theory, because when that much power is consolidated in one spot, if you're on the wrong side of it and mandates start to begin, you're in big trouble. If D.C., put it this way, if the Democrats were in control or the global elites were in control or somebody representing the global elites were in control, we'd be mandated masks right now. Everybody in the country would be wearing a mask until they told us we didn't have to wear a mask again. But if you were in society, if you wanted to move, travel, if you wanted to get into a grocery store, if you wanted to go to the bathroom at a gas station, if you wanted to get energy, you'd have to be wearing a mask, or the government would be coming down on you, and your fellow countrymen would be coming down on you. So let me explain the big picture as best I can. There is a global elite structure. I've been saying this from episode 1, and that consists of, George Soros, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and these people have combined forces and have started think tanks, places where they meet and devise plots on how to manipulate the chessboard, which is the world. Because you got to remember, the world is not as huge as you may think of it if you don't travel. If you travel for a living, if you have been around the world, and just imagine what it would be like if you had endless wealth to move around the world. So think of it in these terms. The global elites have taken the 195, 200 countries that are in this world, and they have been able to, through endless amounts of money, infiltrate each and every one of these governments for whatever purpose they need, including the United States of America. The media and our political class is moving us away from the ideals of America that Donald Trump is trying to protect, and that Ronald Reagan spoke of, that Abraham Lincoln spoke of. And they are using COVID-19 as planned. These people did not just come up with it simultaneously with Donald Trump. This is something that has been written about. They wrote about how they were going to implement it. It's out there for the public to read. It is just, as John F. Kennedy warned, we don't get that information, but it's out there. I want to start with George Soros, because when you think of the global elite, think of it just in these terms very basically. They are very wealthy people. They are a government unto themselves. They are untouchable because they have connections at the highest level with every government in the world, including ours. One of the guys that likes to manipulate everything is this character named George Soros. George Soros was born in Budapest during the Nazi takeover. He had a wealthy Jewish father who was able to bribe a Nazi into taking George Soros in at age 14. As he separated his family and moved away from Budapest, George Soros stayed behind and actually became a worker bee for the Nazi party. So he was, in essence, raised in Nazi ideology. And I want to get to this interview because the global elites, George Soros included, have global reach. They have endless wealth, and they are manipulating the citizenry into accepting the Chinese model because the elites have decided the Chinese model is the best. They basically, it's authoritarian capitalism. It means that they are in control of the capitalism and they get the wealth from it so long as they manipulate the chessboard, they manipulate global markets, they manipulate currencies, and they manipulate societies to get what they want. And right now what they want is to crush America and rebuild it into the Chinese model. The EU, the UK, Australia, they're all there already. They're there. China's got them. The elites have basically implemented the Chinese model. It's underway there. And right now, Donald Trump, at least from appearances, is the one standing in their way. So I want to take you through George Soros first. We're going to go through all three of these families, and I'm sure there's more, but these are the ones that are public. George Soros in 1998, during the Clinton administration, did an interview with CBS News. And I want to strip away the propaganda because it's an episode on 60 Minutes from 1998. And what they always do in our media, which is complicit, is they wrap all of the statements with propaganda. And I want to explain that as we go through the clips. But if we can, this is George Soros, 1998, of Steve Croft of CBS 60 Minutes. Play clip 1, Tanner.
I think that I've been blamed for everything. I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do.
He does not pay attention to the social consequences. So what they do in this particular episode with George Soros is they paint him as a immoral character who is crashing economies around the world at will for his own personal gain and his investors' gains. But part two of that is he's a philanthropist. So he's got a big heart as he's destroying these countries and destroying people's lives around the world. He's got a big heart is what they try to get across. That he's a dichotomy. You can't really tell which one he is. Is he the global guy out there manipulating currencies with all of his vast wealth, or is he the philanthropist that's helping these poor countries? And I want to explain it like this as we move on. His philanthropy is much the way a mafia would work, a loan shark would work. He goes into these countries and he'll give them 5 million here, 10 million here. He'll back political candidates. He'll back organizations within each of these countries, and he gets power and he gets influence with his money. And then he's gotcha. And he starts to manipulate the chessboard for his own advantage. He is not a philanthropist. He is a mafia boss who controls every aspect of societies, or tries to infiltrate them and tries to start chaos within them and direct their economies in a direction that suits him, suits his global interests. Tanner, can you play clip 2?
Whether I or somebody else does whatever is happening in the markets, it really doesn't make any difference to the outcome. I don't feel guilty because I'm engaged in an amoral activity which is not meant to have anything to do with guilt.
And what I would say with that particular clip is if you watch the entire episode, and I encourage anybody to watch, or everybody to go watch it on YouTube, it's the George Soros 60 Minutes interview, is that he has no conscience whatsoever about anything. He's a sociopath. When you watch that interview, he says at one point they're talking about him working for the Nazi Party as a Jew in Budapest, and he is a part of working with this Nazi to confiscate all of the valuables of the Jewish people within that country. And he does it, and he says, if I hadn't done it, somebody else would have. I feel no guilt at all from it. And of course, you can justify anything, but how could you not have guilt if your people are being terrorized, sent off in to foreign lands to die in gas chambers as you confiscate their wealth? He learned how the Nazi ideology worked. He learned how manipulation of societies worked. And he is now an adult sociopath aligned with many people in the Democrat Party, the Clintons primarily. And if you remember, the Clintons are the Democrat Party. From 1992 forward, the Clintons have become the Democrat Party. That's what they are. The Democrat Party is the Clintons are the Democrat Party, and George Soros is a big player in that game. So you can kind of see where it's all connected. Here's another thing I think we need to know about George Soros, and I have no problem with atheists. If you don't believe in God, more power to you. But when you become a sociopath with no fundamental belief in anything bigger than yourself, it can certainly lead to a lot of bad outcomes. Tanner, play clip 3, George Soros.
Do you believe in God?
No.
He does not believe in God. He is got no conscience. He's got no empathy for anybody or anything. And he basically says that throughout the interview, that his entire goal is to manipulate the world for his gain. And he says that if he wasn't doing that, just like he said when he was confiscating valuables from the Jewish people in Budapest, if he wasn't manipulating currencies and manipulating the chessboard, somebody else would. In that particular episode, he also talks about his involvement with Ukraine. Everybody remember Ukraine? George Soros was very heavily invested in Ukraine and had a lot to do with the Ukrainian government. He was heavily invested in Haiti with the Clintons. So he was heavily invested in Haiti, and we'll talk more about Haiti later, but there's a lot going on, or was a lot going on, and still is with Haiti, the Democrat Party, and the United States. So George Soros first, got to get a sense of what he does. He tries to crash economies. He tries to manipulate economies, and he does it at the ground level, and he does it with enormous wealth. He's able to fund these groups today, as I keep saying, Antifa, which is basically a paramilitary group that is there to cause chaos, cause destruction, cause fear. And the media is there to spread that all over as many platforms as they can so that you get to see it live and in person. He's also funding Black Lives Matter, which is anything other than Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is another organization funded by George Soros. That's why when you see these guys on TV and you see these Black Lives Matters rally, mostly what you're going to see is a bunch of young white kids, because it's not about black lives. Black Lives Matter is about political power. It's an insurrection. Any black person involved in Black Lives Matter is going to, if they get their way, will be the first to be punished by the organization that funds Black Lives Matter. And I hope that everybody gets that soon. There's a woman right now out there trying to explain that. She has been doing live Facebooks. My son has been showing them to me over the last couple days. She's going over and she's repainting over the Black Lives Matter signs in New York on the streets. And she's trying to wake up her fellow black citizens to the dangers of pledging allegiance to Black Lives Matter. So that's George Soros. That's what he's up to. And now I want to get to another interview. This interview is with a guy named Harry Vox. This interview was done in October of 2014. So this is basically 6 years ago. This is an investigative reporter named Harry Vox, and he got his hands on, and he's been around for a long time, a great investigative journalist for anybody who pays attention to what's really going on in the world. This guy was invaded by the FBI in 2002 when he was trying to show the connections between the Bush family and the bin Laden family. He's been around for a long time. They always try to suppress him. If you find anything that he's ever done where he's giving an interview or giving information, it is all on these very difficult to find sources. He basically has to squeeze himself into any format where he can be heard, but he's not going to be on Fox News. Central headquarters for mandating masks is Fox News. That's not him. And he goes through, he gets his hands on some papers from the Rockefeller Foundation, which is this think tank that basically, if you think of these think tanks in this matter, they go out and they put out papers and they put out memos and they put out literature that is picked up by these global elites who are connected to intelligence operations around the world. And it's basically, they give out a playbook. It's a nonverbal wink, wink. This is what we're doing. Play your role when it comes in. So there's really no outside of the original papers that they print and they put out into their network. Outside of that, you would never know it. There's no trail other than people know what their role is. So I want to play pieces of this interview and try to explain it as best I can so that people can understand there's a much bigger picture at play with what's going on with COVID. And let's play clip one, Harry Vox. This is from 2014. Clip one, Tanner, please.
The target of the entire planet Earth, mostly to totally destroy these nations. And for the American people, here's the big one, okay? Because get ready for it. It's going to be, the ruling establishment has a lot of, they will stop at nothing to complete their toolkit of control, right? So one of the things that has been missing from the toolkit of total control has been quarantines and curfews, right?
So what he's talking about is, in that particular instance, is all of the viruses that had been released into the public from 2002, and there's been multiple. Ebola, I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head, but SARS, there's been all kinds of H1N1 after the fact, but there's just one virus after another. And he explains in the remainder of this interview what the Rockefeller Foundation had planned. And I believe the Rockefeller Foundation plans were released in 2010 through 2012, and he's reporting on them because he got his hands on them in 2014. But I want to move on. He's basically saying quarantines and curfews is what they want. And he goes on to explain why. So quarantines and curfews, are we there now? And when he said it, because I remember it back then, I follow him. I remember it back then thinking, what could they possibly do that would make Americans want to lock themselves up and have quarantines if they were healthy? It wouldn't make any sense to me. But as it's starting to play out now, as this movie is starting to play out, and I reckon back to that interview that he had in 2014, it just all started to come back, and you're starting to see the movie that was planned long ago start to take shape. Tanner, can we play clip 2?
They published this, Rockefeller Foundation, and here's what they're saying. They're saying that they call it a scenario. These are scenario narratives, and they speak about it in the past tense. So they put out this scenario, lockstep. A world of tighter, top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. Okay, I'll read a little bit of it. In 2012, the pandemic that the world had been anticipating for years.
Pause that right there, Tanner, for just a second.
Pandemic.
He's talking about they are basically saying in past tense that a virus that everybody was predicting a virus to come. And as soon as he said that, and when I went back and read this or looked at this clip, I remember that Barack Obama made mention in 2015 that a virus, kind of predicted that we'd have a virus like the outbreak in 1918 with the Spanish flu. I remember that Fauci, when Trump was elected early in 2017, said there would be a surprise outbreak. Predicted a surprise outbreak in 2017. And then we all know where Bill Gates is on this thing. Bill Gates is involved in the vaccine business along with the CDC and these World Health Organizations. So they have a big financial interest in vaccines. So it's they are predicting the future and then describing it in past tense, which I find to be very interesting. Can you play the rest of that clip, Tanner?
Finally hit. Unlike 2009's H1N1, this new influenza strain originating from wild geese. They use wild.
Remember wild geese, wild bats, same thing.
Ebola, they're talking about. Ahead. Even the most pandemic-prepared nations were quickly overwhelmed when the virus streaked around the world, infecting nearly 20% of the global population and killing 8 million in just 7 months. The majority of them healthy young adults. The pandemic also had a deadly effect on economies. You can see that agenda. Just naked,
clear as a bell,
raw, naked control agenda written down, and it's anybody's guess how this becomes effectuated in real life. So
he's starting to outline the agenda, and it gets better after that because then he starts reading off the Rockefeller Foundation memo that, like I said, is nothing more than a wink to the intelligence agencies and to the network around the world of this is what, when you see this coming, here's what we want out of it. Remember, they're predicting the future in past tense. So just remember that. Predicting the future in past tense. Tanner, play clip 3 for me, please.
The pandemic also had a deadly effect on economics. International mobility of both people and goods screeched to a halt. Which is what they want. They want a completely isolated world, right? Debilitating industries like tourism and breaking global supply chains. Well, of course they want tourism. They want you stopped because they're not in the tourism business, and they want you at home in your house in front of the TV. Then they got you, because once you watch the TV, they own your soul.
They own your soul. And anybody that's on the side of, hey, wait a minute here, COVID-19 might not be exactly as we're being told. The data manipulation is right in front of your face. Everybody's confused. Everybody's fighting with one another to find out what the truth is, and we all have our own version of the truth. But I wonder how many people could have predicted in 2014 exactly what we're going through today. And of the side of those people who are against the mask, who are against the mandates, who are against the shutdowns, who are against their freedoms being stripped away from them slowly and methodically, so that you wake up one day and that's your new life. You didn't realize that your freedom was being ripped out from under your feet like a rug. You just went along with it. I got to wear the mask because that's the right thing to do for my fellow countrymen, because this virus is going to make them feel better and it's going to protect them. And as soon as I wear this mask and we all start to wear these masks mandated by law, that this virus is going to go away, even though masks have nothing whatsoever to do with suppressing the virus, which is obvious because all of the cases are spiking around the country as people start to wear more and more masks. Tanner and I went to L.A. A couple weeks ago. And just to show you how the mask thing works there, it's basically mandated in public. And I'll give credit to a lot of the people in California because they are not wearing their masks. And I know that some people get very upset when you say they're not wearing their mask. They think that they are in danger and everybody should be wearing a mask. And the only thing that's in danger really is losing our country. That's what's really in danger. So those people that are not wearing a mask, wouldn't they be at more risk too? Just like the other people that they're supposedly around, if they stay 6 feet and they're careful, wouldn't that be just as good as wearing a mask that makes you touch your face all day? Because that, as we all know, as all the journals say, if you just read them, if you take the time to read them, they all say the same thing. Viruses primarily spread through your booger hooks, through your hands. You touch your face, you get the viruses on your face after you've contacted something. You cannot wash your hands all day. You can't wear gloves, change gloves every time your hands come in contact with them. Your hands are the primary source. Rarely does somebody cough in your face, which is primarily bacteria anyway. Does really somebody cough in your face to get you sick? Sick people stay at home. Asymptomatic people get out there in the world and start moving our economy again. The United States people have to take it back from their governors and from this corrupt system that we are enjoying at this particular moment in time. But anyway, in California, when we got to the airport, you could tell the people going into California had heard a lot of bad stuff about California. People are afraid to go to California for what reason? I don't understand. It's one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, but people are afraid to go there because they think the coronavirus is spreading like wildfire, and even touching foot in that state is a dangerous game to play. So when we got off the plane, I saw people in masks covered by welders, masks covered with beekeeper suits. They had everything on you can think of to protect themselves from this deadly virus that 99.6% of people are recovering from. And that's with manipulated data to make it worse than it is, if you're just paying attention to the data. Tanner, let's move on with this Harry Vox clip because I want to play this whole thing out. I want people to understand exactly what's going on here and tell the story so that everybody starts to understand that there's a little bit bigger picture at play than just going along with the flow, with the masks, with the isolation, with the shutting your businesses down. There's a bigger story at play. Tanner, can we play clip 4, please?
Few countries did fare better. China in particular. The Chinese government's quick imposition and enforcement of mandatory quarantine for all citizens, as well as its instant and near hermetic sealing off of all borders, saved millions of lives, stopping the spread of virus far earlier than in other countries. So the message is here is we have to look towards the Chinese, the oppressive totalitarian Chinese regime as an example of what we need to be doing here.
Is that not going on in our press? Think of how protective the press has been over China. Because remember, it's not China. The press isn't in bed with China. The press is in bed with the global elites and the intelligence agencies. China is the model that they don't want tarnished. China's the model that's coming to your town rapidly unless we stop it. China is a model of pure control. They control their society. I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. Like I said, I was just in China in October of last year. I enjoyed the Chinese people. I enjoyed my experience there. It is not something that I would want to live under. I think freedom and opportunity for all people is a great thing. And I think when people have all the power, when the top 1/10 of 1% control most of the nations in the world's money, I don't want them to have to control forever so that nobody else can break loose unless they are aligned with those particular people. Outside of that, they are going to control your life from the time you wake up in the morning till you go to bed. From the day you're born to the day they put you in the grave, they are going to control your fate. And the American dream, the land of opportunity, once again, was the American people breaking away from that global ideology and that global structure. Let's move on to this Harry Vox clip, this interview Let's do clip number 5. Tanner, pay attention to this one, please.
This government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their muscles, flexed their authority, and imposed airtight rules and restrictions. You can see the agenda.
Go.
Okay. From the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like...
Is it starting to make sense now? I know I'm crazy and I'm a conspiracy theorist. That's what a lot of people like to frame me. But anything that is obvious, that you can research, that you can go back, that you can read, that starts to take shape, people for some reason either don't know or start to ignore. They don't want to believe it. It's too complicated. In the big scheme of things, it's not complicated whatsoever. We have a group of global elite people. I don't know how many it is. I just know where the information is coming from. And they have so much wealth that they have gathered throughout the decades and centuries that they basically have a government onto themselves with vast wealth, vast reach, and now the American media, and they are coming to take the Constitution and the American way of life away from you. It's just that simple. That's just exactly what's happening. It gets to be very obvious. I don't know why more Americans aren't alarmed. I don't know what magic they think is going to happen, especially the people on the Trump side of the fence, because the other side of the fence doesn't seem to care. I don't know if they don't care, don't know, whatever, but I don't think that they have a real problem so long as they're in power. So if the other side is in power and they can mandate whatever they want, that's the good thing because they're the good people, and the Trump people who are trying to say freedom are the bad people. We're the selfish people because we want to protect freedom and protect liberty and protect rights. We want all people and all men and all women to be treated under a constitution that guarantees their liberty and their desire and pursuit of happiness. Those are the bad people. It's kind of a strange position to be in when you're fighting for freedom and your fellow countrymen and people around in your circles think that you're the selfish one. It's a very odd scenario that we're in at this particular time. And I want to play that clip one more time because I want you to hear how he says it one more time. Tanner, clip 5 one more time. So listen to this. Just listen to what he's describing. This is October of 2014, what the Rockefeller Foundation put out in their memos to their network, 2014. Tell me if it sounds like today. Tanner, clip 5 one more time.
This government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their muscles, flexed their authority, and imposed airtight rules and restrictions. You can see the agenda.
Go.
Okay. From the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces.
Don't we have body temperature checks now? When I go to the gym, I got to get my temperature taken. Some of the stores that I go into, I got to get my temperature checked. When I go into my office, I got to get my temperature checked. Sound familiar? Would you have thought that in 2014? Did you think that was going to be the way the world was moving and that's what we were going to be going through in 2020? Or did it sneak up on you as it was orchestrated to do? Mandatory masks, temperature checks, as predicted in 2014 and as described in 2010 through 2012 by the Rockefeller Foundation. And then the last clip from Harry Vox. This is a short one. Tanner, can we play clip 6?
Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. That's
the plan. That is the plan in a nutshell. So when you decide to wear that mask, and some of you probably should, but as you start to get into the debate on whether it should be mandated by law and mandated from a central government, remember those clips. Remember that premonition from 2010 through 2012, and as Harry Vox revealed to the world in a very unseen, unrecognized, unnoticed interview in 2014. So let's just walk through it. global structure that is in a very, very small world. They've made it very small.
It's a small world after
Very small world. It's a very small world. And they have enough wealth to connect the dots. Any of you who are in business, think of it. If you have 195 accounts and you have an endless money stream, you have so much money that if you started spending it and did nothing else, you could never spend the amount of money. If you had no conscience and all your priority was power, endless money, power, you have networks throughout all of the countries of the world. They're trying to consolidate that power as best you can. Does it all start to make sense what's coming down on America as we speak? With an election coming in 3 months where we're going to fight for our freedom, and as Churchill, and I'll paraphrase it, once said, America does everything wrong. You can count on America to do everything wrong before they finally get it right. And I hope this time we get it right because we've been tested many, many times before, from the Revolution to the Civil War to World War I to World War II to the Cold War with Russia. It's been coming at us for a long, long time. These global elites want their power. And once they get America, there is nowhere to hide, because a lot of people think, and I was talking to a good friend of mine the other night, and he kind of thought that, we may go through this phase and it would be good for us to learn what it would be like in this socialist utopia, this control theory, this controlled life where there's no money. Everything is there's your currency is basically your phone. There's really no hard cash. You don't really own any assets. You just have a number on a phone, and that's what your wealth is, and that's how you can spend it unless the people in power decide they want to take it from you because, again, you are beholden to the power source. What I say to that is technology has taken that away. The advance of technology in the wrong hands with that global structure, once they get power and once they get the system in place, and once America is in lockstep with the rest of the world and we are no longer even aware that there is freedom, we are normalized into a completely different Chinese model control system. Once that normalizes, it's over. Technology allows yourself to be tracked. You can't organize. There's no way to organize without that technology being tracked by the people in power. There's no way to fight back once you lose it, so you might want to pay attention and try to keep it. That's my opinion. So let's look what COVID-19 has ushered in, and let's look at the timing of COVID-19, because as I said earlier, when COVID-19 came about, when we started to hear about it in December, January, and then the world became very aware of it in January, February, and then all hell broke loose in the middle of March. We had a great economy running. All races, all genders were doing very, very well. People were starting to put money in the bank again, starting to, not everybody, but the vast majority of Americans were living a better life. People were happy with the economy. They felt safe. They didn't feel like we were starting wars all over the world, but in fact, we were trying to peace through strength. We were trying to say, hey, don't mess with us and we won't mess with you. And we were staying out of wars. We were talking about bringing our troops home from Afghanistan, trying to make deals with China, with the EU, with Mexico, with Canada. We were trying to be good stewards in a business sense around the world and just compete on a fair basis. And the world was doing pretty well. People were happy in January and February, except for people that just automatically hate Trump for his language and the way he looks and the way he talks and whatever else. They hate him, and they hate him so much that no matter what happens to the world, as long as he loses, we're happy. Those kind of people, and you know who they are. There's probably a few of you listening. But the people that didn't think like that and thought, we got one guy that's singing my song. He's singing freedom, and he's singing opportunity. I'm going to stick with that guy because I know what the other side's all about. I know the side attached to George Soros and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. And I wonder how many people know that the Rothschilds, one of the daughters, went on Fox News during the 2016 election and endorsed Hillary Clinton. So the Rothschilds, the Soros, the Rockefellers, the global elites are all aligned with the Clinton family. Starts to get a little dicey. You start to think, okay, what do they got in store for me? Are these people really looking out for America, or are they looking out for themselves And are they representatives of America? And the idea is they're not looking out for America. They have no interest in the American Revolution. They have no interest in the American Constitution. They have no interest in you at all, or me. They are puppet masters, and they are manipulating the chessboard for their own world view, and it has nothing to do with America other than trying to strip your freedoms away underneath your nose so you don't notice, because they know they can't come in here and fight you with the guns, and they can't start dropping bullets on us because we ain't going for that. We're too powerful, we're too strong, and we're too armed to allow that to happen. So what they want to do is slowly start to an incremental process to start taking away your freedoms. It's evident, it's obvious, everybody knows it. Who's paying attention? If you're not paying attention, it's time to wake up. COVID-19 has brought in, just like he said, curfews and quarantines. I believe Michigan right now is on a travel restriction. They can't leave their home unless it's an essential movement to go eat, get to whatever government building they need to get to do their job for the state of Michigan. And Gretchen Whitmer, the mandate queen, she's got it all locked down. California, the beautiful state of California and the beautiful people of California, they're on lockdown. Complete and total lockdown. Businesses in tatters. Families that have had businesses for 50, 100, 150 years falling apart at the seams. All of those jobs with those small businesses, all of those people are in complete turmoil. They don't know what the next move is going to be. They're still living off this money the government gave them like a little heroin dealer. Let me give you a little heroin here. You're going to feel nice. You're going to feel great. And then when I take the heroin away, now what are you going to do? Now you're sick. Now you're panicked. Now you got kids to feed. And there's no job out there for you in those small businesses. They're all starting to go away. Travel restrictions. Worldwide travel restrictions are now in play. I need to get into a couple countries that I want to go see because I've got business with these countries. And me personally, I want to get into these countries because I need to talk to the figureheads of these countries, or these companies, I should say, within these countries to get some business done. And I like to look them eye to eye, as do most people in business. When you got money exchanging hands and you got ideas exchanging hands, and you're in the commerce world, you want to look eye to eyeball with the people you're doing business with and get a sense of them. But we can't do that now. Most of these countries that you want to go to, if you go there, you got a 2-week quarantine coming in, you got a 2-week quarantine coming out. Travel restrictions. And how do you get your freedom to travel back again? I don't know, because if you're traveling outside of the United States, like I said, the Chinese model is already taking hold in Europe and the UK. We got kids that are not going to be able to go back to school here very shortly. And if they do go back to school, they're going to have to wear masks and sit 6 feet from their classmates. They're going to take the social aspect out of it. They're going to be traumatized because they're going to be worried about getting sick. And they're going to hear, just like all kids do, they start to get a little older. They start to figure it out. They're going to worry about getting the people they love sick. They're going to be worried about coming home and getting mom sick, dad sick, grandma sick, grandpa sick. They got to start worrying about that. So they're going to start wearing those masks, which are going to ultimately make them uncomfortable and make them sick. And again, if anybody does get sick, they're going to feel guilty for it. So the traumatization of our kids is at play. The education of our kids is at play. The isolation of our kids are at play. And all you moms and dads out there that are teaching your kids on a day-to-day basis right now, worried about what's going to happen in this upcoming semester, how you like it? Are you a little bit nervous about what's going on? Whether you send your kid back or don't? Are you worried about your kids getting sick? Are you worried about your kids having to wear a mask? A lot to think about. And it's all orchestrated, and we fall into it. And if we don't fight back, if we don't organize ourselves before this election, if we don't make our government work for us again, as Ronald Reagan so aptly put, you got to take your government back every now and again from the global elites and the elite people in your government that are orchestrating your every move. If you don't take it back, you get what you get. And we're about ready to get what we get if we don't figure it out. Next rollout of COVID-19 was a $6.2 trillion fleecing of the Federal Reserve, of the Treasury, and that money is spread out all over the country right now, trying to satisfy us as we get through a disease that has apparently no cure outside of a vaccine that half the country will never take unless, again, the control theory works. With little time go by, a year, 2 years, and you're so sick and tired of wearing the mask and being isolated from your friends and family that you say, you know what, give me the goddamn vaccine. Excuse my language. But you'll take that vaccine because what they're going to do is treat you like any other prisoner. You do what I say, or this is what you get. And at some point, you're going to say, I can't take it anymore. Just give me the vaccine because I want to move on with your life. They'll have so propagandized you that you'll think it's safe anyway by that point. And maybe it is, but I doubt it. Because most of the people pushing vaccines are in the depopulation eugenics business, and those two don't coincide. And the very last thing this has brought out, this COVID-19, the other thing that we have to worry about is our social aspect of life. Are we not all fighting? Is there not dissension amongst the troops within your own family, the people you work with, the people you communicate with on social media platforms? There's no church, because remember, they got to take church out of the game. They got to take church out of the game because what they want is the state and the central government to be God. Whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, the idea is that a higher power other than government gives you your rights, and the government is there to protect them, not take them away through cons and schemes and orchestrated virus releases. No beaches. A lot of people on the coast like to congregate on beaches. They like to spend time there. It's a social event. They like to get some sunshine on their skin to make them feel healthy, maybe relax from the 5 days of 8-hour a day work. It's a social event and a relaxation activity to enjoy our beautiful coastlines with our friends and our family. No more. Despite the fact that heat generally destroys viruses, but apparently not this magic virus. No sports, because that's entertainment. And entertainment is enjoyable. So now we're going to watch baseball games with no fans. Tiger Woods is going to drop a 6-footer somewhere along the line here, and he's going to do the fist pump, and you're going to hear crickets. Because it's just not nearly as entertaining and as nearly as fun when people can't social gather to watch the amazing athleticism of some of our great athletes in American sports. No social activities basically at all. You don't get to go hear your favorite musician. You don't get to see your favorite comic. You cannot gather in social settings to enjoy your life anymore. And I wonder how many people are starting to realize that that is just going to go on. Remember, this was a 2-week shutdown originally. It's going to be 2 weeks. We're almost into the 5-month time frame of being either locked down, masked, or out of work. Maybe a little startup, then we push it back. A little startup, then we push it back. And anybody who knows anything knows this is not ending until at least after the election. And in Washington State, they issued health guidelines to their businesses, and those health guidelines run out on November 5th, and they had the courage to publish it so you could all read it, and it's running around on social media right now. I'm sure it'll get suppressed eventually, but I don't know how you can run mandates until 2 days after the election of the President of the United States and the Senate and the House in 2020. It makes no sense. So where's Donald Trump fit into this? Because I've been very critical of Donald Trump not explaining what I just explained to you. I don't know what his game plan is. He certainly is of the mindset of a chess player, and that he does not give you his position clearly, and he does not give you his game plan or his strategy or his acts of war, because we're in a war. It's just a different kind of war. It is a war of economics. It's a scientific war. It's a war of information. It's a war of propaganda. It's an economic war amongst states and nation states, I should say. But we're in a war, and Donald Trump does not seem to explain the war all that well. And I've been very critical of it. So I'm hoping that prior to this election, he starts to wake up the American people and become a leader. Get out in front of the American people, show some humility, and say, listen, I may not be the best communicator to all of the people, but I need America to understand what America's all about and how wonderful and just fascinating this country is. It's not perfect. We've got ills. We've got problems. But the ideas of America need to be preserved. Need to be preserved. We are the last bastion on earth. Everybody knows that we're the last place on earth. Although a lot of freedoms have been stripped, we are still the freest country in the world. It's one of the very few places where you can start a business, knocking on doors, become very wealthy and live a great life, take care of your family and pass that money down to the next generation while simultaneously paying big time taxes to take care of other people that you don't know within society. It's one of the very few places where you can come from around the world. You can come from Mexico and you can build a great life for yourself. You can come from Central America and build a great life for yourself. You can come from the Far East and build a wonderful life for yourself. You can come from the Middle East and build a great life for yourself. Canada, great life for yourself. Russia, you can come here and build a great life for yourself. This is one of the very few places where you can pick up, get to the United States, work your tail off, play by the rules, and you can accumulate money here and live a happy, fulfilled life here more so than any other place on planet Earth. So what's Donald Trump up to? That's what I want to get to in the remainder of the show. Because I think what he may be doing, if I'm looking on the rosy half glass full side of things, what Donald Trump may be doing is just simply redirecting power away from D.C. so that the people of America can watch over the course of 5-6 months how governors control their states as if they were the president or a dictator of a state. You get to see who's who and whether you like it or not. That's really what's going on at this particular moment in time, because if you are in South Dakota, I would imagine you're starting to see your property values skyrocket. And I don't know that, but I got to think that a lot of people are starting to look at South Dakota and saying, if this election is lost, where can I go where a governor is protecting my freedoms? And Kristi Noem is protecting your freedoms up in South Dakota. I think a very strong presidential candidate for 2024. In fact, I would bet money that she's running because she is singing. She's the only one, really, singing the American way. We give you the information, we tell you what's going on, and we let you determine how you're going to live your life. If you want to be stuck in your house because you're afraid of what's going on in the world, you have all the right to do that. If you want to get out amongst the world and roll the dice because you have some comorbidities and you just you want to get out there and you're going to protect yourself as best you can, you're going to tell your friends, be a little bit careful about me because I've got hypertension. I've got stage 1 cancer and I need to be careful about this disease. So just be careful. Tell your friends and family to be careful and we all watch out for you. That makes a lot more sense than mandates, because mandates in the hands of one person or a central government is a very, very dangerous thing to say, okay, I'm just going to take care of the mandate because it's best for everyone. Very, very dangerous thing to do when you understand America and the American way. So Donald Trump releasing it back to the government, or back to the governors. I have some thoughts on it because I've been traveling for the course of the last couple of weeks, and why I haven't done a show in the last couple of weeks is because we've been to certain parts of Florida, been to Nashville, been to St. Louis and St. Charles County in Missouri, been out to Los Angeles, and I've got a sense of how things are being run within all of these particular states and in Florida. So I want to start the journey on Florida and kind of give you a sense of if you could have been with Tanner and I through this trip around the country into these several different locations and give you a sense of how things are by state. So a couple weeks ago, we left on a Monday, and before we left, I went to the gym that I go to. Probably 50 to 100 people in that gym every single solitary day. 3 or 4 people with masks on, and the people that work at the gym are wearing masks. When you come through the door, they check your temperature and you get in, and outside of that, people are touching everything. They're breathing very, very heavy as they work out. They have no masks on. And I've heard of no issues whatsoever within that gym or anybody at that gym. And I got to tell you, that gym is very diverse. I see some guys in there in their 70s and women in their 70s that are absolutely fit as a fiddle. I'm fascinated and I'm envious, and I want to pattern my life after how hard they work on their health and fitness. And they are in there, and I see them every day. There's also 16 and 17-year-olds in there. There's 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-old heavy people trying to get skinny, thin people trying to put on some weight. all trying to make themselves look and feel better. And there is no masks other than a couple, no gloves, and people touching everything in sight. I leave the gym, we get on a plane, mandates in the airports and on the planes to wear the mask. And then we get into Los Angeles, like I said, and it is mask central when you're at the airport. Most of the businesses are making you wear masks to get through the door because the employees of most of these businesses are very freaked out and they want masks to be worn or they're not coming to work. So you got mask on, and the psychological effect of wearing a mask, reminded every day that we're in a deadly pandemic, that anybody could die at any day, and it's just a matter of luck. So let's wear these masks to limit the issue. Then we get into St. Louis. And St. Louis County is the same situation. You're basically, if you're inside in any way, shape, or form, you're wearing masks. A lot of people are wearing them outside. You cross the bridge over into St. Charles County, which is out of St. Louis County, a little different government, a little different rule. And it looks like a free country again, where some people are wearing masks. Businesses may want you to come in and wear them, but it is you basically look like you have an option of whether you want to wear the mask or not. You're not mandated anything, right? And then you see these businesses starting to take shape, right? So businesses now have a decision to make. And all of the ones that have mandated businesses from their customers, I will no longer shop, not just now, but ever. I will never set foot in a business that has mandated and forced me to wear a mask inside their establishment, although I absolutely defend with every ounce of my life that they have the right to do it. When you're in a private business, you have the right to do what you think is best for you and your workers and your patrons. But I think it's anti-American to mandate things. So I go to the places that don't mandate masks. So right here in Florida, the one place that I can now shop is Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie put out a statement, said they don't want to get into the controversy. It's a free country. If you want to wear a mask in their stores, they're all for it. Their employees wear masks. But if you don't wear a mask, you're free in their store to shop. And that's where I shop, is Winn-Dixie. A little bit more expensive, but I now love it, and I am a fan, and I will be shopping at Winn-Dixie, and I hope that everybody that in the sound of my voice that has a Winn-Dixie, I hope that's where they shop. I will not be at Walmart again. The end of Walmart for me. I shouldn't have been shopping there in the first place because of all the small businesses they destroyed in the game, but I will not be shopping there any longer. Starbucks, I do like their coffee. I don't need it all the time, but I will not be there anymore. Target, I won't be there any longer. And there's many, many more that I will no longer step foot into because of the mask mandate, only because it's not American. It is not American to make healthy people wear masks. It is not American to quarantine healthy people, especially when half the country or more think it's a ruse, a con, an orchestrated event by enemies of our country who want to rip the foundation of America out of the ground, rip the Constitution, rip 1776 and the Revolution out of the ground, and start to employ or implement, I guess is a better word, the Chinese control model. It's right on our doorstep, and that's the last thing I'm going to say about it. Wake up, America. It is coming. And in the next episode, episode 6, we're going to get into some other crazy things that are going on in the world. If you're a social media hound and you are interested in the pedophilia narrative that is going on in the world, I have been researching that for a couple weeks, night and day. There's definitely something to this pedophilia situation, and it reminds me a little bit of being able to get away with anything type of scenario. Because if you are in the business of sexualizing children, taking advantage of children, sexualizing and raping and trafficking children for your own delight, you are evil. EVIL. And there are people doing it, clearly. And there's a lot of people exposing it. Several celebrities, I'm not going to get into the names right now. Actually, I might get into the names, but I'm not getting into their stories. We're going to play that on the next episode. But there's something going on between Hollywood, the upper echelons of our government, a little bit of this global structure from the Vatican to the people. There's some people in the Kingdom of UK, in the monarchy there, that are implemented in this particular scheme. And there's a lot of smoke around that topic. And one of those, let's give you some of these people just so you can kind of see how this all plays out. Think of Anthony Weiner and how Anthony Weiner played out. Anthony Weiner was a very popular Democrat congressman who went to jail for sending naked pictures to a 15-year-old girl that he had never met. And let's just go through the connections just to give you an idea of one, and then we'll go through maybe 25, and you'll see how this has got to be bigger than just theory. Anthony Weiner, a Democrat congressman, married to a woman named Huma Abedin. Huma Abedin, if you don't know that name, was the right-hand person, the confidant, the joined at the hip, the I do everything along with. She is going to be in every picture with me, Hillary Clinton. So you got a guy that is going to jail for sending naked pictures, sexualized pictures to a 15-year-old who is married to a woman named Huma Abedin, who is attached to Hillary Clinton, and emails between those three were discovered by the Southern District of New York and the police department in New York City. And they have all of those, apparently, at least through news reports, have that computer where all of that information was being sorted out. As Sidney Powell said, and we'll play her clip on the next episode, Sidney Powell said that she had heard from people within their sources that she trusted within the New York Police Department that when they had saw what was on Anthony Weiner's laptop, which again is Anthony Weiner, Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Huma Abedin, that computer had information back and forth, hundreds of thousands, if not more, of emails back and forth. When they saw what was on Anthony Weiner's computer, it made them physically ill. They had to go throw up. She said it was unbelievable, is the way she described it. Disgusting, right? So that is 6 degrees of separation from the person who was almost the president of the United States. You've got Harvey Weinstein going to jail for rape and sexual assault of young actresses, and I mean young actresses who were coming out with stars in their eyes, going out to Hollywood to get into his movie world. So it is a very deep, as you start to study it and you connect all of the dots of the people involved, it gets to be very, very suspicious, and I can't wait to dissect that all for you. All right, so I want to end right here. If you are a big fan of America, which I am, for those who enjoy the story of America and understand how lucky and how free and how many people have died for this country, I think you'll like the ending. This is a little play out. This is a young man explaining if the flag had a voice, what it would say, and it kind of walks through all the things that the flag has been through, all of what it represents. So have a great weekend, everybody. This ends episode 5, which I would call the end of the beginning episode. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
I would like for you to know that I believe that if our flag could speak, these are the words that it would say. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present Old Glory. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings, and I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically across the great institutions of learning, and I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, truth, honor, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident, I am brave, I am proud, and I am ready. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is held a little higher. My arms are a little truer. Except for my God, I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am sovereign. I am saluted. I am respected. I am honored. I am loved. And yet I am feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. Some of these battles include Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Aragon Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, Guam, Okinawa, Korea, Quezon, Saigon, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, and scores of other places long forgotten by all. except those that were there with me, I know because I was there. I led my special operations forces in the quiet of the night and at the tip of the spear. I saw them fight fearlessly throughout the globe every day of the year. I watched over them even during the casualties of Desert One, and they still loved me. I was on a small hill, Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, tired, but my soldiers and my sailors, my airmen, my Coast Guardsmen, my Marines, they all cheered me, and I was so very proud. I was at Ground Zero in New York City on September the 11th as cowardly fanatics attacked America. I was raised from the ashes of once proud buildings by brave firefighters. These were heroes who risked their lives to save others, showing all that America, although bloody, will never be beaten because those who would destroy me cannot win. For I am the symbol of freedom, of one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have been soiled, I've been burned, I've been torn, and I have been trampled on in the streets of my own country. And when it is done by those whom I have served with in battle, it hurts. But hear me today when I say, I will overcome because I am strong. I have slipped the surely bounds of earth, and from my vantage point on the moon, I stand watch over the uncharted new frontiers of space. And I have been that silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hour comes when my stripes are torn into strips to be used as bandages to cover the wounds of my fellow comrades on the field of battle. And also when I fly at half-mast to honor my soldiers and my sailors, my airmen, my Coast Guardsmen, my Marines. But most importantly, when I'm placed into the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the gravesite of her fallen son or her fallen daughter, I am so very proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave, dear God. Long may I wave.